McGrath comes in, it's on its way, it's there! The miracle on grass!
Owen with a kick to full forward, Cloak, not quite, Blair, Collingwood, back in front.
The seed, he delays the give, Franklin, this is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman! Poor fans can't bear to watch. They led by 28 points at one stage, but the perfect storm has erupted. Oh, who else? McDonald!
A round full of upsets, probably one of the craziest. Well, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say that considering what we've seen in round 15 and held this whole season. But we get a couple of huge upsets in round 16 with GWS knocking off the former top team in the league. And, oh boy, Richmond fans, this was just not a good last couple rounds for you guys. That's for damn sure. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is the fourth and long AFL breakdown. Of course, I'm your host, Ross Allen, joined alongside by the AFL correspondent, Coach Johnny Hess. Coach, how are we feeling after a pretty good round of tipping for you? And I mean, especially for your Sydney Swans, a really, really good round of footy.
5 and 4 is above average. Not too bad.
Well, it's better than last round. That's for sure.
I will definitely agree on that. And just some my upset call last week at the end of last podcast, man, did it come true or what? I
boy, round of applause for you. Yeah.
I remember telling a few people, I said I feel like Nostradamus a little bit, because 2 of the first 3 games I put that caveat in each of the predictions. I went, don't be surprised, and 2 of the 3 I was a little more accurate than I thought I would be. I have
to close to 3 out of 3 too.
I know, and that's and the scary part about it is the Cats losing Jeremy Cameron is definitely going to make their little road now after this a little bit more difficult. Mm-hmm. And man, I watched that. To all my West Coast family and friends, I feel so bad, because that was one of those that I was not expecting. That legitimately not expect. I was sitting in watching this game in shock, because I did not compute for a while. I was excited the Swans played well, but I was a tad bit disappointed, because I thought West Coast would play so much better than that. And there are significant questions now. Can West Coast still make the finals? Because they're I don't know what is wrong, and I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, that's certainly not a fun question that you have to try to answer right now if you're a member of that West Coast Eagles organization. But real quick, before we get rock and rolling into round 16, I know we just had the second best day of the year. Maybe we'll put that behind Christmas. We had Independence Day here in the States, and I hoped that all of our Aussie friends might have joined along the festivities, because, I mean, we've both broken away from the British, so we both deserve to celebrate. And real quick, Donnie, I need, for the cameras at least, for everyone watching YouTube, show the fingers. We got all 10? We got all 10? Yeah, put them up. Hey, there we go. We survived another year.
I live in a condo complex. I'm not exactly a massive fireworks person. I know that there were plenty of people in my area that were definitely making sure that they used up their pyrotechnic licenses, shall we say. It was quite interesting. But I don't want to be a party pooper, but the 4th of July is I'm not a big massive person onto it, especially considering I do have a dog at home, so we always try to keep it a little bit quieter for her, since her here we don't want to hurt her hearing or anything like that.
Well, that's kind of you, but here in Idaho, we definitely, man, they know how to party, know how to grill, and oh boy, you betcha I enjoyed some snags this weekend, so we had a good time there. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today. Let's get into the action with your voice, American voice of the Australian Football League. Starting us off, of course, is the Gold Coast Suns and the Richmond Tigers. And this was a really, really fun game if you are a fan of any other team besides Richmond, and especially if you're one of the Gold Coast supporters, because they pulled this huge upset and they beat the Tigers even with a pretty poor goal-kicking performance. But this was a fun game. This wasn't just an outright win by the Suns. They would get out to a good lead, then Richmond comes storming back. They get out to a good lead, Richmond came storming back again in the 4th, and then the Suns are able to cap it off and then just really close out this game on a high note with Ben Keegan putting the game away late. And this was a really weird Richmond team to watch because they almost did everything opposite of what this Richmond team usually does. They suffered from a turnover-heavy game, and they played pretty lax off the footy, which was almost surprising. We're used to this suffocating form of defense where you can't get past anyone, you can't get any space. And Gold Coast had plenty of space to work with a lot of the time. And now they drop out of the top 8. So, 1, what did you think about this game in Gold Coast? And 2, will the Richmond Tigers stay outside the top 8?
Oh, let's approach it first from the side that I think everybody wants to talk about, this Richmond side. And just being completely honest with myself, the injuries have now really reared their ugly head. But the funny part about it is I don't think the injuries were the main reason they lost this game. I think they lost this game because they didn't look like they were interested. Like I hate to hit back. I hate to hit back at this. Mm-hmm. Those demo comments about playing at Marvel are just not. They are not aging well at all. And I'm not even talking about the fans. It's even the players look disinterested. They didn't look like they wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. This is the team that I almost do want to say I question whether they want it now. I really, really do. This was a game right here that can set you up for a run to get into the finals, get some momentum, and give themselves a chance to win a 4th flag in 5 years. But the team that stepped onto the field against Gold Coast looked lackluster. They looked, I mean, sorry, Richmond fans, they looked pathetically bad on defense. And there was no care in the world for this Tigers team. I'm not gonna say they're done because again, it's 3 times burned by this team. It's Richmond. You hate saying it, but it's true. But here's the thing, though. Their road gets significantly tougher over the next couple of weeks with Brisbane and Geelong waiting after this game against Collingwood this week. So let's keep an eye on it. And I'm even going to say it. Keep an eye on Collingwood this week because they're an interesting bunch, especially the way Richmond is playing. To flip sides, Gold Coast, you get the win, but there is almost part of me that goes, man, this could have been so much more devastating for Richmond if your accuracy button would have been not haywire. I mean, considering you win this game by 10 points, but that's because you kicked 10 more behinds in the game. I mean, think about that. Even take 5 of those behinds, take them in the goals. This is a 40-point win for Gold Coast. 40-point win for Gold Coast over Richmond. I mean, it's such a missed opportunity to get a ton of positive momentum. Gold Coast gets the win. Tuke Miller has the game of his life. Ben King plays really, really well. A lot of the young stars that were playing in this game played really, really well. And they didn't have Hugh Greenwood. Hugh Greenwood was managed in this game. One of their best midfielders, bar Tuke Miller, did not even play. So a very good performance by the Suns. I'm happy for them. Maybe this gets the Vic media off their back about whether this was a failure and all that stuff. And
I hope so.
Even we had kind of discussed it a little bit too. And I like I said, financially they're making money. The problem is on the field that it's just not reaping the fruit that they want. And with so many young talents coming up to the end of their contracts very soon, that's kind of the thing that we all look at and go, we don't want it to happen again. We don't want the Rankins, the Andersons, the Lukosius, the Rowells to go, because if they do, well, you're right back to square one where you have been. So all in all, like I said, great win for Gold Coast, missed opportunity, but you get the win, you get some positive momentum. And like I said, you make some of the Vic media kind of go, is Richmond going to make the finals or not? Which I think makes for some interesting TV, because there are some that are, they're digging, they're putting the dirt on the casket of the proverbial Richmond dynasty, and there are others that are still standing there going, not touching that shovel yet. So
right, yeah, man, that is a tricky shovel to touch, because I mean, if you're looking from any sort of argument, the only argument you can make that's pro Richmond making the finals right now is that it's Richmond. in history.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kind of like what I was talking about last week after they lost to St. Kilda. That's the only thing that they have going for them. So it's kind of tough. And then at the same time, for Gold Coast, I'm hoping that this one maybe gives them a little more breathing space, give them some more room on this franchise so they don't pull the plug on it yet. And, the best part about, the thing that I know all of you look forward to the most every single week we do this, the Gold Coast fan count comes early in the show. And I was kind of teasing Donnie. I didn't give it the number because I don't like to give away my secrets before we start. But I told him it was going to be a brand new record of Gold Coast fans. And that number, it was at, I think, 19 last round. That sucker skyrockets. I'll put that up at 35 for beating one of the most hated teams in the league. Shout out to you guys. You're going to get a lot of fans from that. So really good show all around. Next game we had was one that we're really interested in based off of what kind of Geelong Cats team we were going to get. That was the biggest question going to this round for this game. We had Geelong versus Essendon, and although that the Dons put up a really, really solid performance against this team, Geelong was just too much talent there in the midfield and the forward. And it also didn't help that this was a really, really inspired team off because of what happened last round. This was a bit of an angry team that we were kind of expecting to see. And they did put it all out on the field. And they took the lead in the second after a bit of a slow start. And they didn't look back from there. Yeah, Jeremy Cameron kicking 3 of the Cats' first 4 goals in this. And then you have Tom Hawkins and then Patrick Dangerfield. They combined for 10. Tom Hawkins leading that trio with 6 in this game. And although Jeremy Cameron had a solid game, there's going to be some injury issues with him, so that's going to hurt a little bit here. But, kind of like I said, Essendon, they played great. What they've been doing all season is, especially of late, probably like the last 6 rounds, is that they've definitely been overperforming, or at least over-exceeding expectations set by the fans and maybe the media. So they're still a great team. They're right there in the finals mix. But now Geelong is tied with points in points with Brisbane and Port for third, just behind the percentage points. I think they're around 124, whereas Brisbane up there at number 3 is at 134. And so, will Geelong be able to get back into the top 4 this season?
Oh man, this is a game where it's the good and the bad with Geelong. The good, you get a good win over a pesky Essendon team that I've enjoyed watching. I think they ran out of steam. I think unfortunately this young Essendon team, I think, is hitting a tiny bit of a wall, and at the worst possible time, because you're still in the hunt for finals. Yep. You're still 6 points back out of 8th at this present point, and unfortunately you run into a very veteran, experienced, and very savvy Geelong team, and your style didn't really work at Kardinia Park, which is long and skinny, and I think it really, really plays to Geelong's advantage. The bad part for Geelong is you lose Jeremy Cameron, and this kid has been a linchpin for this Cats forward offense because he helped take a little bit of pressure off Tommy Hawkins and Gary Rowan. He gives that other target that I think can just literally give teams headaches. And unfortunately, this hamstring's probably going to take him out till close to the finals. So this weakens Geelong's forward game just a tiny bit because Tommy Hawkins may now get double teams. Gary Rowan may have a stronger defender on him. So this definitely could spell a little bit of trouble for Geelong wanting to make the 4, especially considering I think Port Adelaide is starting to play better. That doesn't help either, especially with their percentages being so close. Mm-hmm. This could come down to wins and losses at just the right time, and who gets a bigger win than the other each and every week. But a great performance by the Cats, but it's going to be marred a little bit by the fact Cameron goes down hurt, and the fact that there's a few lingering questions of should Jeremy Cameron have even played, considering he had to do a fitness test. They asked him, he said he was good. Halfway through the second quarter, there goes the hamstring. Mm-hmm. So there will be a few people asking around this Geelong Cats team is will this injury, did Jeremy Cameron take a risk that he probably shouldn't have?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask there. It's hard because especially as the mindset of a player in the real competitor like he is, if you're any bit good to go as a player, you're going to push that you're going to be able to be put on the field, you know. But also, it's times like that is where the organization might be best to step up and to hold them off and get. But it's also tough too because this was a pretty important game in their season in the final standings, and it's a good Essendon team that you never want to sleep on. So I hope no one really gets too much flack because this ended up being just a really tough decision to make, and it just unfortunately didn't end up working out in their favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just one of those. It's sometimes the risk that you gotta take, banking these 4 points. Now, the good thing about just looking quickly at the ladder is just the pure fact that you do have a gap between Geelong in 5th at 44 down to Sydney with 8 points back at 36. So you have a little bit of playroom, but the issue that you run into is 3rd and 4th, who you're tied with, who you're trying to get in the top 4, are percentage points ahead of you. And neither look to be really, really difficult, really, really hard teams when it comes to it that they're going to lose anytime soon. So it does put pressure on Geelong that they got to keep winning, because if they don't, they may fall back. And say Sydney steals one against the Western Bulldogs and against GWS, hypothetically speaking, and Geelong drops a couple. Well, there's your 8-point buffer gone. And now Sydney has a chance to be fighting with you for 5th if you lose a couple games in a row. So it's Geelong's got to keep it going, A, to stay in the top 4, but B, to not let the bottom teams, aka the Sydneys, the West Coast, the GWSs, the Richmonds, say they get on a run and win 3 or 4 in a row. That still keeps them at bay from passing you and sending you further down the ladder, giving you a much more difficult road in the finals, even if you're in the bottom 4.
Definitely going to be a little bit of a tricky situation for Geelong as they close out the season, but that top 4 firmly in grasp right now. And now let's talk about. It could be safe to say that I don't know. It's hard. Just real quick, what do you think was the bigger upset, Melbourne and GWS or Gold Coast and Richmond?
Oh man.
It's 2 different reasons side of these games.
Honestly,
right?
GWS Melbourne. Well, I said in the preview, I think keep an eye on Gold Coast, because I really, really think Gold Coast has a chance. Richmond's injured. They've got way too many injuries in the worst part of the ground, the defensive side of the ground, which really structures up their team, which allows them to get their pressure game going. Melbourne has been so consistent this year that I think this one did baffle a lot of people. Yes, GWS is talented. Yes, GWS has a ton of skill. But GWS, I mean, let's be honest, they poo-pooed the bed last when they last played. So
the last 2 rounds, let's say a draw against
you fall to Hawthorn.
It's not easy.
Exactly. Well, so you take that into effect. Yeah, a draw, and then you lose to Hawthorn, who's 17th on the ladder. So a lot of people were kind of like, well, GWS lost their opportunity. And there it is. Again, GWS finds a way when their backs are against the wall. They need a win. They're against team. Nobody gives them a chance to it. They pull out the victory that they did. I mean, now the tables are almost reversed a little bit. Now all the pressure now is, okay, what's wrong with Melbourne? Melbourne has played so well this year. Now the doggies have passed them. The doggies are ahead of them.
Well,
yes,
it's almost like what we were talking about going into this game last round, the problem that they were having last round. Just real quick to get into this game before we get the full-blown tangent. Of course, we're on to Melbourne and GWS. The Giants take an early lead on this one, and they really put it on Melbourne in the second, and they don't trail for the last 3 quarters, pulling off this huge upset. And the thing we need to talk about is something that we brought up last round, in that there's no denying the talent of that defense, of the Ds, okay? It is the best in the league, and it's hardly getting in, almost no one compares to them. But they've been so inconsistent in their offense and their goal scoring, and it's really been hurting them. And one of the things that we talked about last round is that, I mean, it looks like they're really missing that key guy that they have to score, and maybe that's Ben Brown. Ben Brown's still not in this game, and it's obvious that they need him back sooner rather than later. Of course, you don't want to rush his return, but they're missing because, I mean, the defense is great. They're forcing a 9-10 against a team with really good goal scorers, especially Toby Green. He finishes with 3, but it's still most of that team was limited. But there's no real stand-up for them, and their goal kicking was bad with 7-13. That's not going to get it done, especially not against the top echelon teams. But at least here for GWS, man, they're able to pull it off. I guess one guy that you want to throw out there, and the guy that really worked hard this game for Melbourne, was Bailey Frisch. He finishes with 3 goals behind the total disposals and a couple of really damn good marks. So he was there. He's been the guy that's had a couple of shining games this season, but not really a consistent score that they might be able to rely on. But obviously, GWS now, they break into the top 8 on the back of a Richmond loss. They're 2 points ahead of them now at that 8th spot. They control their own destiny. I really think that their success is obviously going to come down to Toby Green, but I think Himmelberg is going to be, like, that little duo with Green and Himmelberg with the scoring it is going to prove huge. Himmelberg might be kind of that dark horse guy that they're going to need to rely on come finals if they do make it. And now on Melbourne, though, you're looking like you might possibly drop out of the top 4.
That's the big one of the big questions that a lot of the roundup shows that I've watched online they've been talking about is Melbourne feeble enough now to potentially even fall out of the top 4. And now there's selection questions. Does Ben Brown come in? Does Jacob Wiedering come back in? Does McDonald drop? How is their forward line going to work if Ben Brown comes in? Well, I've said numerous times, I think Ben Brown might be the answer, not for the pressure, but for the consistency in his goal kicking, because the old Melbourne is starting to rear its ugly head. Inconsistent goal kicking going forward past 1 or 2 players. And Ben Brown is a consistent 60-goal kicker when he played for North. I understand he's not a great pack player. I understand that. But right now, you need a consistent goal scorer because you're not getting it. Bailey Frisch is not going to be able to kick 3, 4, 5, 6 a game. He's not that type of player. He's a big small forward, but he's kind of a role player. He's not exactly the constant goal kicker. McDonald's played well, but McDonald's goals have dried up because teams are taking him away. You bring in Ben Brown, the first top defender is going to be on Ben Brown. That's going to open up McDonald, and that's going to open up Frisch even more because Frisch is going to get a lesser defender. I think that's going to change the team. I've seen so many people say Jacob Wiedering. Jacob Wiedering can sometimes disappear in games that he needs it. I think Ben Brown comes in. I think he gives them a consistent 2, 3, 4 goals a game, and I think he helps right this ship. But is it too late? Are already the questions being asked, or have they already kind of, okay, Ben Brown, we tried him, he didn't work a couple weeks. Is he going to be kind of one of those write-offs at the end of the year where they try to deal him after the season because it didn't work, or they brought him in, which then makes me go to the list manager. Why did you bring him in the first place if he wasn't going to fit the style of game play? I don't mean to be mean, but that does not make any sense. Why would you bring in a player that does not fit your system at all? I don't understand that at all. I think you bring him in, you let him play a couple of games. If he bombs, put him back into VFL, bring up Wiedering. I don't know, but I'm a Melbourne fan. I'm a tiny bit concerned because this is 4 weeks in a row now. Their scoring has been limited. That's being kind. Yes, a couple of those games, but this is the wrong time to do this because teams are starting to play better. They're starting to progress. You want to get better as the season goes on, not worse.
Man, those defense, it's a weird predicament to be in because, one, you're still one of the best teams in the league, but at the same time, there's a little bit of worry that you might be dropping out off the cliff of the top 4, so that's definitely going to be something that you're going to follow along as the season progresses into these last handful of rounds. Now we go from there to a team. I mean, there's one team at the top that we have some questions about. Then there's another team at the top that I don't have a whole lot of worry about. In fact, they just continue to impress me pretty much every week they play. And that is the Brisbane Lions as they took on Adelaide this round. And they keep rolling with their third win in a row. And this is now 10 wins in their last 11 games with the demolition of the Crows. And their offense just stays hot. They have a pretty good defense. Obviously, it's nothing like the D's, but their defense is above serviceable, I would say. But it's this offense that's really going to carry this team deep into the finals if they want to make a push. And this is another game where you get a trio, kind of like Geelong. They put up a bunch of goals. This trio of Zach Bailey, Charlie Cameron, and Lincoln McCarthy combined for 10 goals for the Lions in this game. And kind of one of the things I've been talking about the last number of rounds now is saying that the Adelaide Crows' biggest priority this offseason is to get Taylor Walker some help, because it's either Taylor Walker scores and they're in games or win games, or he's off or limited on the scorecard and they lose games. It's another example of this. One goal, Adelaide doesn't really come close to winning. And so now, one thing you got to ask is that the top two teams in the league right now are the Western Bulldogs, which we'll get to later in the show, the last game of the round, and the aforementioned Melbourne Demons, who look to be on the skid. So, what are the chances that Brisbane actually finishes first this year?
Ooh, that's difficult, because it really would kind of go on how does Melbourne stuff up, basically, if we want to be really simple about it. If Brisbane gets in the top two, I think they're second. I think that would be Melbourne dropping out. I don't. The Doggies have a lot going for them. The only issue I would see, though, is they're still got some injuries in that midfield. Losing Aaron Naughton this week to the concussion, unfortunately, as spectacular as he is to watch, he is somewhat of a liability with this ability to throw himself sometimes at footy contests and then knocking himself out, unfortunately. Like I said, I'm not trying to joke about concussions. I wish him a speedy recovery, but there have been some people saying, do the Doggies need to temper him down? Do they need to tell him, hey, you need to be a little more calculated when it comes to your going up for screamers? Or do they really need to invest somehow in teaching him how to do a screamer and land, so that he's not doing that anymore? But I think if Brisbane get in second, and right now I think they have a really good chance of doing that. They are clicking. Part about this game was the fact that Lachie Neale was a late out with an injury, so this was done without one of the best players in the Brisbane Lions, and they just dismantled the Adelaide Crows. Again, I know some people are going to go, "It's the Crows, coach." It's not exactly like beating the Western Bulldogs or the Melbourne Demons. Yes, but still a serviceable Crows team that has some blows to some teams, and for them to beat them by 52, almost doubling them up in points, and no Lachie. Hipwood is invisible in this game with only 8 disposals, no goals at all. Danaher, a not bad game, but as I said, Lincoln McCarthy, Aaron has a really good game, and Zach Bailey is continuing to show he's one of the good young players on this team. And this defense is of no names, and I don't mean it disrespectfully, but after Harris Andrews, it's not exactly household names that are doing it for the Brisbane Lions. Brandon Starcevich is one of the best defenders for small forwards in the entire league. I mean, I think he's given up no more than 2 goals a game to some of the best small forwards. That's Eddie Betts, that's Tommy Papley. Just some elite small. Toby Green, I think, was the only one that might have got away on him when they played each other. But that's kind of the thing, is they kind of do it by committee. I mean, Adams has played really well. A guy that I've heard joke, they said he looks like a Canadian lumberjack. Big old beard, nice early body, but he's great with marks. So this is kind of a defense by committee. After Harris Andrews, who's their intercept marking cover of that defensive line, it really is kind of a cast of characters that they're not household names, but they're getting the job done. So I got to give Lions a lot of credit. A very, very impressive win over a Crows team that they just have they come up with performances that are surprising, and this was a tiny bit of it. I'm hoping Taylor Walker's okay. I think he had a tiny bit of a stinger because he had a little bit of a neck injury, so he was subbed out halfway through the second quarter, and I think that really affected Adelaide's momentum because I think they were starting to play better, and this injury hit at like the worst possible time.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully it's just a stinger. Those are, I mean, they really suck at the moment. Hopefully they're not typically things that last too long. The game is better when he's playing, so hopefully we'll see him in round 17 of the season. Especially for an Adelaide fan, you really hope that he's there. Now, this next game was probably the most disappointing game of the round, and that's just because there's so much riding on the line, especially with West Coast losing, and then with Richmond dropping out. It was a golden opportunity for the Fremantle Dockers to jump into that top 8 against a lackluster Carlton team, a team that's been struggling this year, maybe not up until late, but through most of the season they've been struggling, underperforming. And they really just kind of crap the bed this game, Freo does, because they blow this fantastic opportunity. They're awful. I really don't want to chastise the Freo fans too much, but I swear this team has just not been good at goal kicking this entire season. This is another really poor performance. Another example of them doubling up their goals in behinds. They kicked 8 and 16 in this game, where it's just a 16-point game. Obviously, that's not good. But with this one, they could have jumped into the 7th, and they were unable to because they get out to a 28-point deficit in the second term, and that just allows them to not be able to come back in this game. They got close, they threatened, but it just wasn't enough to overcome this. And now Carlton wins back-to-back games for the first time since rounds 3 and 4. So it's hard to have faith in Freo making the finals. The hope is still there. What are your biggest takeaways from this?
Oh man, this is a game of two teams that have underperformed here at times. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people were like, okay, Freo gets the big win. Freo's got a chance to get into the finals. And I think they faced a Carlton team that really kind of surprised them with how their intensity. This was not the Carlton of previous rounds where you were given that 12, 14, 18, 24-point run where you get up on them because Carlton all of a sudden forgets who they're supposed to guard, or somebody runs into somebody, or Adam Sods forgets to turn around, or so many things that had went wrong mentally. It wasn't structure. It wasn't system. It was somebody forgot to guard. That's the guy kicking a goal. Oh, darn. It's kind of the way Carlton has been playing defense. So Teague finally, the mouse finally found the cheese in the maze for all of these Carlton defenders, but this was a much better defensive game. Mm-hmm. Like I said, has been snake bitten this year with injuries. I feel so bad for their fans because if you put half of their injury lineup back on the field, this is a Freo team that should be in the finals. I mean, bar none. There's no argument. Mm-hmm. And this is a Carlton team that if they played as good as they should be there as well. The scary part about it is just looking at the ladder really quickly. Carlton, as ugly as this season has been, is still only 6 points out of the finals right now with 7 games. I mean, they're scary enough. There's still a shot. I mean, I unfortunately don't think they're going to get there. But has Teague found something? He legitimately found something in Carlton to make a run to potentially make the finals. So we'll really have to see. These next 6 to 7 weeks are going to be very entertaining because, as I was saying off mic, there are some teams in the bottom half of the AFL this year. I don't want to play now if I'm in the top 8. Mm-hmm. They're a little scary because they're going to come North Melbourne, Hawthorn, Carl, even Gold Coast now.
Mm-hmm. I might even throw in Kilda.
So exactly, and Kilda as well. You're not sitting here going, there's 4 points in the bank. No, you're going, this isn't going to be as easy as we thought it was. So these final weeks are going to be quite entertaining. I think there's a few 8 teams that should be on upset alert every week because they're not going to get a pushover team like they thought that 2 or 3 rounds ago.
That's what I really like about this right now. The way that it would be hard to guess this earlier in the season, but now you get all these teams, and I really don't think there's no guaranteed win for any team, no matter if they're the number 1, number 8, or anyone kind of near the top 10 at that point. Each game, it looks like it's going to be a dogfight, and obviously that only makes me that much more interested and looking forward to seeing how the rest of these rounds play out. Now, the next game we move into, kind of with the aforementioned Hawthorn team, is they've been looking solid the last couple rounds. They haven't looked that good all year, but they get a couple wins, a couple good performances recently. But that kind of comes to a halt against this Port Adelaide team that looks like they might be gaining a little more confidence and a little bit more faith inside this team. And they win this game over Hawthorn on the back of 9 straight goals in one point in this game. And if you kick 9 straight, there's a really good chance that you end up winning the game of footy. So that looked really good from them. Hawthorn, like I said, they look better. But, I mean, Port Adelaide really continues that dominance that they have over non-top 8 teams this season. And I think my biggest question about this game is that, at least personally, is that I haven't really had a whole lot of confidence in Port Adelaide this year. I got a little bit more after last round. They beat Sydney for the first time of the season. They beat a top 8 team in a well-fought, highly contested game. But now, I think I'm a little bit more sold on them now again. Although, I mean, Hawthorn isn't that great in the ladder. They're still a tough team to beat. Port Adelaide handles them. But to me, if they really want to prove themselves, they need to beat Melbourne next round. So, Donnie, what would it take if they haven't proved themselves yet to you? What would it take from this Port Adelaide team?
I don't know. I've been high on Port Adelaide this whole season. I think they've underperformed for the list that they have. Again, they've been bit by some injuries in the worst possible places. Losing Zach Butters, I think he was a linchpin for the midfield / forward position, a lot like a Dusty Martin or what Jake Stringer's starting to do with Essendon right now is that mid forward that can go in, give you a little live wire in the midfield, but then push it forward, be able to kick goals as well. Xavier Dersma being hurt. They've had injuries in the worst possible places, so I think that's a little bit the reason why Port hasn't been as solid. But I think they're playing better footy. Ollie Wines is playing out of his mind right now. Travis Boak is just an absolute beast in there. Their forward, Charlie Dixon, is now starting to kick goals a little bit more consistently. I just want to see him kick those against better oppositions. So this week will be a big test for him is can he kick 2 or 3 goals on that Lever and Meg little duo there in the back for Melbourne. Mm-hmm. But in all of this game, like I want to go to this just really, really quickly, just because I'm one of those. I love the heritage of this game, and to see awesome show of gratitude towards Sean Burgoyne, 5th player ever in AFL and VFL AFL history to play 400 VFL AFL games, joining a very small list of players, and to be the first ever Indigenous player ever do that was incredible. And in his early days before he moved to Hawthorn and joined kind of their flag dynasty that they had there in the late 2010s, was incredible to see. It is a little disappointing. Hawthorn didn't play as well as I think they should have. I think Hawthorn kind of hit a wall a little bit in this game against Port, and Port is just very, very good when they want to be. So I don't know. This is a Port team that I think they may be kicking at the right time, and getting Melbourne this week could almost be a blessing, because if they can find a way to pull off the victory, not only do you continue to force pressure on this Melbourne team that can maybe bring them back to the pack a little bit, but this puts even more pressure on other teams in 3rd and 4th around him on the ladder to continue to win. This was a game that they might have expected Port to drop. So I'm very, very fascinated by this upcoming week, because there are some really good matchups that I cannot wait to watch.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're really kind of almost short selling it just by saying that too. It's really just from the matchup in the finals implications for this next round. Of course, going to have to wait till the end to hear our predictions about that with around 17 tipping. Now, Donnie, here's probably going to be your favorite part about the show. Let's take it away to Sydney and West Coast because the Swans get a huge win over and they seemingly prove themselves. I mean, this Vic media has been kind of disrespecting them all season, quite frankly. And the last couple rounds, maybe they play a really tough game against Port, they lose, but they still are able to get some respect off of that. Then they go and they take on a top 8 team, and they beat them by 92 points. This team is a legit finals team. And, I mean, Buddy Franklin, fantastic like usual. Another 3-goal game here. He's now 3rd in the AFL in average goals per game with 2.9 behind Taylor Walker, who has 2.9, and Harry Mackay that has 3.1. He would be a little bit closer. I go to the average because, I mean, most of these guys have 15 games played, but he only has 11. So total goals on the season might look a little different there, but he's right up there. He's been looking in prime form, and Don, you were telling me at the beginning of the season to watch out for this guy, Buddy Franklin, because I haven't been able to see him play like this, or I haven't been able to see him play. So he's been an absolute treat, and you were dead on the money with that one. So I'm super thankful for that. Then you get Justin Mchenry. He becomes the 4th Sydney Rising Star winner this year. He finishes with 22 disposals. And sometimes it looked like West Coast didn't want to be there. So can we just blame that on a little bit of road game woes? I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. Of course, injuries, and maybe just they're kind of running out of steam because it's been a really tough season. And it looks like things might be coming to an end. So, a couple questions. Will West Coast finish in the top 8? And is Sydney now a lock for finals?
Oh boy, two difficult questions because neither are I think easy to answer because not only am I trying to as balance as much as I can, but I don't know if this West Coast team that played this game here plays the rest of the season. No, West Coast will not make the finals because Gold Coast, without half their starters and a bunch of 18-year-olds, could have beat West Coast as listless a performance as this was. I'm being honest. I'm not trying. Well, it's nothing against West Coast. It's just I can't not see what I saw. I mean, they didn't hunt the footy. They didn't want the footy. As I stated a little bit, they looked like they didn't want to be there. It was almost like their loss earlier in the season at Cardinia Park against Geelong just up and bit them because the same thing happened. There was very little offensively going forward. I mean, Darling got loose a little bit in the first quarter, but he wasn't putting it on the scoreboard. They were inaccurate as well. That doesn't help. And Sydney, to be completely honest with you, this was their best handballing performance I've seen all season. And many media people that were watching this were enamored by this. And the ball movement was spectacular to watch. But it helps when West Coast literally gave no resistance to that at all. Yes, Sydney played a really good game. I think Sydney played very, very well. Are they a lock for the finals? Absolutely not, just because of the fact if you look at their rounds up, like I was saying earlier, they have this 4-game stretch coming back. You got to get through it at least 2-2, okay? But you're 1-1 in the first 2 games. You get Western Bulldogs, and Sydney gets the Western Bulldogs this week, which by this performance, there's some Swans fans that are getting a little more confident that they're going to be much more competitive in this game. I think this is going to be a very good game just because the mid matchup is going to be absolutely insanely good with Liberatore, Bontempelli, and McRae against potentially Rowbottom, Parker, and Kennedy. And then, as you said, Justin McInerney, not to fix you on that one.
Shots appreciated.
Justin McInerney is the fourth rising star. played incredible. And when he got moved to the halfback line, he has playing wing, so it was good to see him play well. Nick Blakey had a really, really good game for the Swans, playing much better after being demoted to the VFL for nearly a month because of some lackluster play previously. And to see Tom Hickey have some success against Nick Natanui was also really, really good. So I'm buoyed, Mike. I'm buoyed in confidence for this Sydney team of the finals, but I'm not gonna jump that proverbial hurdle yet, because when you've still got tough games, like I said, Western Bulldogs, GWS, Essendon, North Melbourne, and St. Kilda are all still on your schedule of these last 7 games. None of those games are going to be easy, especially considering you play the number 2 team overall, number 1 overall team in the Western Bulldogs, who are absolutely flying. You got a GWS team that I think are still fighting for the finals. They want to stay into the finals, and it's a Sydney derby. No matter if it's played in New South Wales or not, it's always going to be tough. And plus GWS got the chocolates in the first time they played. St. Kilda's playing better. North Melbourne is not an easy team to play, so there's still some potential landmines for Sydney. So I'm not going to completely jump on their lock, but this definitely makes a lot of Swans fans a little more comfortable with the fact that they can make the finals, because this is a win some did not see happening. And I said this was one of the ones they needed. I thought they needed to get 2 out of 2 in this 4. They've got 1. They just need 1 of their next 2. And if they can win out on those last 5, again, still not easy, they're going to make the finals if they do that.
100% to that point. And like when we were looking through, sort of like 2-3 rounds ago, when we were looking through the last number of games in the season, one of the games that I had circled for the Sydney team that's going to be pivotal for them making the finals, or at least holding their spot, is this game against West Coast. So the first test of the circle game that I have for them, they've now passed with flying colors. So that certainly is going to build a lot of confidence going into the last bit of the season. And then for West Coast, man, going to be a lot of people scratching their heads at this one. But the second to last game of the round, we had Collingwood and St. Kilda. And Collingwood's 2-game streak almost at this point looks like a fluke, as they've now lost consecutive games. They're 2-5 in the last 7. And the Saints have now won back-to-back games. And they've actually almost come back from the dead, is what a lot of people see. They've pretty much a team that's been written off from about maybe midway through the season. They've actually climbed back into finals contention. They're at 28 points. I mean, they're at 11 right now behind Richmond and Fremantle. Richmond 9, Fremantle at 10. They're behind on percentage points at 83 right now. Freo's up at 92 and Richmond's up at 100. So that's going to be a tough gap to overcome if they're going to make the finals. Obviously, going to have to look at points and not percentage. But they are just 2 points out of the top 8. GWS at 30 and 4 points out of the 7th spot, with West Coast being at 32. So believe it or not, St. Kilda is actually right up there. Will they make it? Who knows? What are their chances that they actually get to maybe make the finals for another year?
Oh man, this is crazy to even think that we're even discussing this after some of the ways their early part of their season went, just with the absolutely disastrous results with 9-goal losses and things like that. Oh, that is, it's so. I don't know. I hate jumping to that, because this was a game where, against Collingwood, like if you look at the final score, you're like, ooh, 9-point game. This is a close game. All due respect to Collingwood, St. Kilda let off the gas and let Collingwood get up late in that. So that was not exactly the greatest. Like the result was not exactly the way this season has went. I just really quickly want their schedule, because I just wanted what their run home is. And oh boy, here just next 2 games over the next 2 weeks, the Brisbane Lions and Port Adelaide. If I'm being completely honest with myself, you're probably not winning those games, but I think they will test both teams. West Coast from the Sydney game, St. Kilda wins. West Coast Optus Stadium, which is what it looking like it will be, I think West Coast wins. I think West Coast wins that one. Carlton St. Kilda on the 30th. That's interesting because I want to see how form is on that one, because if Carlton's playing the way they're playing and St. Kilda stays on this form, this is a really good game that could potentially be like a finals eliminator for who's in contention on the one. Right now, I would lean towards Carlton. I think Carlton's playing a little bit better footy than St. Kilda. Then that game against Sydney, which again I want to see form. If I'm right and they go 0-4, I think they go into this Swans game not seeing finals chances, and they may have a listless game. Sydney wins that one, and then you end Geelong and Freo. So I don't see them having enough wins on this road home to be able to get in. But again, just never know. The way this season has gone, as soon as you think there is an absolute, I mean, this is a 100% easy tip, and it goes pear-shaped. I mean, if St. Kilda beats Brisbane this week, it will not shock me, because that's the way this season has gone.
Isn't that weird?
But if I'm going on,
at the beginning of the year, people call you crazy if you said that.
Well, not really though, because I think St. Kilda was a team. St. Kilda and Carlton were two teams that honestly a lot of people were talking about making finals potentially, because their lists were good. They had good seasons the year. Well, at least St. Kilda had a good season the year before, making the finals, knocking out the Doggies in the first round before to Richmond in a game where really they were so undermanned with injuries and setbacks and that. So this really is a St. Kilda team that has underperformed here by their list. But if you look at their injuries and you look at kind of some of the things that have happened to them this year, it's not completely surprising. But their schedule just does not show a lot of positivity to make the finals. If you really look at it, with games that are very, very difficult. Like I said, including a trip out west. If Optus Stadium is back to operational to where they can play out there, that's never an easy place to play against the West Coast Eagles out in Optus Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, St. Kilda definitely has a lot of hopes. They're going to probably need to maybe not everything, but close to everything is going to need to go right for this team if they want to make it into the finals. But they have hope, not something that we thought they would have a number of rounds ago. So good for them, good for the fans, and we'll see how they can finish off this season. But let's put a cap on round 16 and look at the last game on the schedule, which was the Western Bulldogs against the North Melbourne Roos, and this team that we've been talking up for a while now. Although it doesn't relate to on the ladder, this is a tough team to beat, and like Donnie said, this is not really a team that you want to play these last number of rounds. And the Doggies get the win here. This is kind of something that this was the expected performance, of course. No one's really expecting or thinking that the North Melbourne Roos were going to get this, but this is another game where they play a way better team, a lot closer than a lot of people might have given credit for. It was a margin of 29, but through most of this game, it was a hard-fought, highly contested game. And one of the things here, though, is that, like we said earlier, the Doggies take back their top spot on the D's loss. They're up, tied in points, but up on percentage. But this was a good win, and one of the problems we've been seeing about the the Western Bulldogs, over the last handful of rounds is that their offense is there, but their midfield was struggling for a little bit. They've gotten them back, but their defense seems to be a bit of a concern, as this is a good win, but this isn't really a win that sparks a lot of confidence in me, because giving up 79 to the current wooden spoon isn't a good look. I know this is a good team. We're going to keep saying this is a good North Melbourne team, but at the same time, if you're the top team in the league playing the worst team in the league, the game shouldn't be as close, and you should be able to limit their scoring a little bit more than they did in this one.
Yeah, this was a game where I think a lot of people looked at the early season result and they went, okay, how much better are North's going to play? And just the final score, it's tremendously better. It's
right.
less than, this game was between 40 and 20 points most of the game, which compared to the over 100 point loss at the start of the year, That's an impressive amount of progression.
Correct me if I'm wrong,
I,
but
I
did
agree
Josh
with you.
Bruce put up 10 in that game?
Hmm. Yep. Yep. If you take Josh Bruce's 10 and you compare it to this, as North Melbourne kicked 11 in this game, so at least it wasn't where Josh Bruce beats the entire North Melbourne a 25 himself. No, I kind of agree with you. This vaunted Western Bulldogs midfield is starting to not. They're maybe they took North Melbourne for granted a little bit. I'm gonna give them an out a tiny bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I shouldn't. We'll see. Um, but I think the Ruck experience of Todd Goldstein, I think, affected this game, because when you've got a Ruck that can put it anywhere he wants when he wants to, that's going to change Western Bulldogs midfield, because they're not first on the footy. They have to fight to get it, which makes their numbers down. I mean, Bontempelli was not one of the top rated performers for me in this game. Yes, he still has 27 disposals, but he doesn't make the impact that he has in previous games. It was actually Tom Liberatore who actually had, in my opinion, a more impactful game this week. So I don't know. Goldstein did really, really well to kind of neutralize the Western Bulldogs ruck, which I think really kept this game closer than I think many people still kind of thought this would still be a 50, 60 point lead.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to win this by 29 was a rather impressive performance. Defensively, we'll see. North Melbourne doesn't have that marquee forward that everybody's going to be concerned about this week. Western Bulldogs now have to deal with Isaac Heaney and Buddy Franklin and Tommy Papley. This is a completely different fight than Cameron Zurha, Nick Larkey, and Taron Thomas. If we're honest, the three for Sydney are just a tiny bit better overall talent-wise, again, than this. So this will definitely be an interesting test for this Western Bulldogs team. So I'm super excited, but a win is a win for the Western Bulldogs at this point. You go top of the ladder with Melbourne stumbling against GWS. So there's a lot of happy Bulldog fans right now. But I'm very, very intrigued for this game this week, because if Sydney were to somehow pull off a win this week, I'm interested to see what the narrative will be.
I think there's a lot of hope for Sydney, especially after their respective performances this season. Of course, we're going to get to our tipping here in a moment, but first, Donnie's team of the round. Let's hear what you got from this one. You have to have probably not the easiest week of selection, but there's a lot of names that you really could put on here, so I'm excited to hear what you got.
Oh man, I completely agree with you. This was not an easy round for forwards, just because of the fact there were so many guys kicking 4 and 5 and 6 goals. So the forwards kind of came a little bit easier. It was the midfielder who had so many great performances on this. So let's hop into it. Team of 16. We'll jump on to the defenders, because you start with defense first. We'll start off with St. Kilda's Bradley Hill. Disposals, 3 intercept possessions, 3 score involvements, 4 marks, 3 clearances, 2 tackles, and 710 meters gained. The weeks to Norse Aaron Hall, who's been on my list a lot. 31 disposals, a behind, 3 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 7 involvements, 13 marks, 3 tackles, and 656 meters gained for Mr. Hall. Melbourne's Christian Salem finds his way back into my team of the week. 31 disposals, a goal, 5 intercept possessions, score involvements, 9 marks, 3 tackles, and 509 meters gained. The Western Bulldogs' Bailey Dale, 23 disposals, goals, 4 intercept possessions, 7 score involvements, 4 marks, and 602 meters gained. Collingwood's Chris Main, 26 disposals, 4 intercept possessions, 3 score involvements, 8 marks, 5 tackles, and 371 meters gained. Wrapping up the defenders is Port's Darcy Bryce Jones, 29 disposals, 8 intercept possessions, 3 score involvements, 6 marks, 3 clearances, 3 tackles, and 356 meters gained. We jump to the big man in the middle, and we have a new guy taking over the rucking battles, and that is Frio's Sean Darcy, 20 disposals, a goal, a behind, 3 intercept possessions, 9 score involvements, 8 marks, 6 clearances, 40 hitouts, and 284 meters gained for the big man from the Frio Dockers. We jump to the midfield, and boy, oh boy, did we have some amazing performances here. We will start off another BOG for Mr. Darcy Parrish of the Essendon Bomber. 43 disposals, a goal, 10 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 7 score involvements, 5 marks, 13 clearances, 5 tackles, and 908 meters gained. Mr. Parrish, as I just stated in our last game review, Western Bulldogs Tom Libet hops in with 25 disposals, 2 goals, 2 behinds, 8 score involvements, 6 marks, 8 clearances, 5 tackles, and 387 meters gained. Another outstanding performance by Port Adelaide's Ollie Wines, 43 disposals, a behind, intercept possessions, 6 score involvements, 3 marks, 13 clearances, 7 tackles, and 616 meters gained. And I'm glad to finally be able to put this gentleman in my team of the week, Geelong's Patrick Dangerfield. 37 disposal, goal, 4 intercept possessions, 2 goal assists, 8 score involvements, 11 marks, 11 clearances, 4 and 185 meters gained. Rounding out my midfield, Frio's Andrew Brayshaw, 28 disposals, 2 goals, 6 intercept possessions, 5 score involvements, 8 marks, 5 tackles, and 299 meters gained. We jump to the forwards. There's going to be a lot of goals in this particular forward line. We start off with Geelong's Tommy Hawkins, 15 disposals, 6 goals, a behind, a goal assist, 9 score involvements, and 6 marks for him. Richmond's Tom Lynch, 13 disposals, 5 goals, 2 behinds, 7 score involvements, 6 marks, and 317 meters gained. Port Adelaide's Charlie Dixon, 14 disposals, 4 goals, 2 behinds, a goal assist, 9 score involvements, 2 marks, and 4 tackles for Mr. Dixon. North Melbourne's Cameron Zerha, 14 disposals, 4 goals, a behind, 2 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 8 score involvements, 4 marks, 304 meters gained. The Western Bulldogs Cody Waitman, 13 disposals, 4 goals, a behind, 3 possessions, 2 goal assists, 10 score involvements, 7 marks, and 292 meters gained. And rounding out an amazing round of goal kickers would be Brisbane's Lincoln McCarthy, 16 disposals, 4 goals, 2 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 8 score involvements, 6 marks, 3 tackles, and 379 meters gained. We jump now to the bench. I just mentioned him in our last game. Our ruck for this week will be North Melbourne's Todd Goldstein, 14 disposals, 2 goals behind, 6 score involvements, 7 marks, 3 clearances, 30 hitouts, and 258 meters gained for the North Melbourne ruckman. Defender Sydney Jordan Dawson, 25 disposals, 2 goals, 6 intercept possessions, 6 score involvements, 5 marks, 3 clearances, 2 tackles, and 386 meters gained. Our midfielder would be Norse Ben Cunnington, 26 disposals, 2 goals, 2 behinds, 3 intercept possessions, 8 score involvements, 8 marks, 9 clearances, 7 tackles, 514 meters gained. And last but not least, our forward, I had to give him it because he had an incredible performance on Thursday Night Footy. Gold Coast Ben King, yes. 13 disposals, 4 goals, a behind, a goal assist, 10 score involvements, 7 marks, and 254 meters gained for the Gold Coast full forward. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my team around an incredible footy, tons of goal scorers. Wow, that was fun to put this team together.
Oh man, I would just love to see one of these team of the rounds that you make just be able to make an all-star kind of appearance and play on the same team against one poor team that would have to go up against that. Wouldn't that be fun? But power ranking time, baby. Round 17 power rankings. We have some changes to be had from last round. A little bit of reshuffling of the deck is what it was. And Donnie, I swear, another round. I said this like the last 4 rounds, I think. Another round, another same 5 teams that we give you with just one change here. But I'll keep saying it. Great minds think alike, and this is another example of that. Both of us, the top 3 was the same. If you go through it, Brisbane is still at the top. Geelong is storming back right there at number 2, though. And the Western Bulldogs, although they might be at the top of the league, neither of us really have a whole, like, we still have confidence in them. We just don't see either of them being better than Brisbane and Geelong at this point. But 4 and 5 is where it gets tricky. So what does yours look like?
Oh, okay. So my number 4, I have Port Adelaide, just because another win over Hawthorn, playing better, and I have to be honest. My 4 other teams, Brisbane, Western Bulldogs, Geelong, Port, all won. Melbourne didn't. I really don't have a 5th team to knock Melbourne out, because Sydney's lost their last 3, West Coast has lost 2 of their last 3, and Richmond's lost 2 of their last 3. And Gold Coast and GWS is kind of the same. Melbourne is there because they still have 1. So I have Melbourne at 5, Port at 4, Geelong at 3, Western Bulldogs at 2, and the Brisbane Lions. Again, it's hard to argue that these are not the 5 best teams right now. It's hard to say these are not the 5 best teams to fight for the flag this year. I like Sydney. I like West Coast. I like GWS. I'm just not sure if those teams are gonna be in the picture come whips are cracking come the finals time, when it comes to preliminary final and final. But you never know. It'll just depend on matchups and who plays who. But this Brisbane team is playing so well, it's hard not to have them as one. Bulldogs played a North Melbourne team not as impressive as the previous time, so you can't really them. Geelong will they take a little bit of a hit with that loss of Jeremy Cameron? Port playing better again, a Hawthorn team that's kind of on and off, and then again, unfortunately, that Melbourne stumbles against GWS. So we see now the medal of Melbourne with a difficult Port team coming up this week.
Yeah, for me, I actually have Port and Melbourne flipped on this one, because I had Melbourne in number 2 last round. And so they're obviously going to drop, but I still think that when hot, this is a really solid GWS team, definitely a finals team. And so I don't want to kick them down 3 notches for losing. I'll get with 2, and still, I have more confidence because, I mean, right now, I see Melbourne and Port Adelaide really competitive and pretty identical in terms of comparing the 2. But when, at least in my mind, when I go, and I feel this pretty much the same way about 2 teams where they are currently, I put them up against each other, and which team do I have more confidence in? Right now, that is still the D's. I need. It's a huge proof of game for Port Adelaide this in round 17 against them. So that's definitely going to determine it. And honestly, Sydney was really close to getting into the top 5 after their huge win over West Coast. So with another solid performance next week, we might be able to finally see a new team break into the top 5. But I would love to, as always, love to know what you guys think of this. Drop your top 5 teams and your parent rankings in the comments on YouTube, or let us know on social media, on Twitter at 4th Long Radio, or Instagram at 4th and Long Radio. Don't even need to say to leave a comment on YouTube, because you guys always do, and it's always, always much appreciated. But Donnie, let's cap things off here. Let's go into our round 17 tipping, and it really has a solid game to get us started. A huge top 4 matchup here with Port Adelaide and Melbourne taking place at the Adelaide Oval. Let's start off with a bang. Who you got in this game?
Oh man, this literally is gonna be bang. I'm sorry to say this, Melbourne fans. I've given you a lot of love all year, but I'm gonna go Port on this one. I think Port is playing better. This is on the road. Melbourne did not play well the last time they played over in Adelaide, and I think this Port Adelaide team is better than the Adelaide team that they lost to. Being completely honest with you, unless I see Ben Brown on the Melbourne team sheet, I'm concerned concerned Melbourne could get blown out in this one because I think Port is playing better. There are rumors. I have not 100% confirmed this, that young superstar Butters may be back as early as this week to play for Port, which would be an absolutely electric addition to this Port Adelaide team, who is missing Fantasia but is still playing really, really well. I'm gonna keep my ear to the floor on this one to hopefully see if that comes true, because if it does, I'd be even a little bit more concerned as a Melbourne fan, because that is an amazing in for Port if they can bring in Zach Butters for this one.
Wouldn't that be neat? Yeah, it's hard to tell because you gotta see, I guess, if those couple names I just threw off are going to be on. And I know that in my pair rankings, I just said that I have more confidence in Melbourne than I do Port Adelaide. It's really close, and especially I think the thing that puts this game over is that it's taking place in the Adelaide Oval, and you made a great point with the D's losing to the Crows at the same venue. It might be a tough place to play again, especially with how much is on the line and how competitive these teams are. I'm going to be with you and go with Port Adelaide, but I wouldn't say I'm rooting for Melbourne, but there's a part of me that wants to see me kind of prove people wrong about them and maybe see a complete offensive performance. So I guess only time will tell with this Thursday night game. Now the next one, going to Friday, we have a couple ones on this evening. We have Essendon and the Adelaide Crows first off in Marvel Stadium. And I am going to roll with the Dons on this one. I think the Bombers get it done. It's going to be interesting to see how Taylor Walker comes into play, if he's available and fully healthy for this game. Obviously, if he isn't, I'm picking Essendon 10 times out of 10. If he is, I'm just picking Essendon 8 times out of 10.
Oh, this is the game I really, really want to know, is Taylor Walker going to play and how healthy is he? If he's anything less than 90%, I'm concerned this could get ugly for Adelaide very, very quickly. Essendon, I don't know. They hit a wall a little bit. I'm a tiny bit concerned on that, but I'm going to tip the bomb. You pull my tips up. I had them just a second ago. I have Essendon winning this one. I just wanted to double check. I was like, my mind there for half a second. Yes, I have Essendon winning this one. It's in Victoria. They always play Victoria really well. I think Geelong, they ran out of steam. It was a long ground, which I think disadvantaged them a little bit. Adelaide doesn't have the tall defense or the intercepting defenders that Geelong has. So I think Essendon will have a lot more success. I have the Bombers winning this one.
And then the other Friday night game is going to be Hawthorn and Freo. And unfortunately for Freo, it's been a good Hawks team, and this game is taking place in Tassie. So, I mean, we all know how the Hawks play up there, and that is part of the country. So, I'm rolling with Hawthorn in this one. Unless Fremantle could magically fix their goal-kicking accuracy, I think it's going to be a long game for them.
Me being at the University of Tasmania, Hawthorn plays Tassie so well. I think there's a little bit of a blip this week playing a really good Port Adelaide team. Freo, I think they're reeling a little bit after this Carlton loss. I think that really dented their confidence a little bit. I'm going to go Hawthorn on this one. Sorry, Freo fans, that I feel much more confident down in Tassie with Hawthorn than I do Freo at this point.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And then moving on to our Saturday slate of games, we've got Carlton and Geelong at the historic MCG. And, man, if Geelong keeps things rolling, Carlton might be riding a little bit of a high. But even with Jeremy Cameron being out for this game, I love Geelong in this one. And it shouldn't be too close of a game. If it is, I wouldn't be surprised. But this should still always be 4 points to the Cats.
This is one, I think even without Jeremy Cameron, I think Geelong just has a little too much. They're going to put so much pressure on this back line to play perfect footy, and they're notorious for having an error at the worst possible times. So I will tip the Cats in this one.
And the next game is an interesting one because we just talked up this St. Kilda team. Is one of these ones, one of almost any non-top 8 team that you really don't want to overlook. And if you're the Brisbane Lions, this is a crucial game. It kind of has trap game written on it. I could definitely see this. I think Brisbane is a smart enough team where they don't really fall into it. And this is, I mean, I haven't heard this venue before. The stadium's name is To Be Confirmed, so I'm really looking forward to this brand new stadium, I guess. But as of recording, things still aren't set. It is looking like it's going to be taking place in New South Wales, although it's still subject to move. So the stadium may play a role in this one, but I think ultimately Brisbane has more than enough talent to get things done if they play their style of footy.
Okay, gonna warn quick. I think you're gonna get nipped in the comments section a little bit because Brisbane is in Queensland, not in New South Wales.
No, I mean not. Sorry, the game's taking place there, not the team. Excuse me.
We'll have to see. I think New South Wales is where the majority of the cases are. So I'm highly doubt it'd be in New South Wales. It's either going to be
with this information. I'm just going off of what the AFL is giving me right now. Okay.
Okay. So New South Wales must have really made all this disappear very quickly. I would think they would try to get this up in Queensland because that's where it's originally supposed to be. I think. I have heard talk this one or another one could be at Ballarat. That's definitely a possibility. I don't think it really matters, honestly, where it's played. I think Brisbane wins this one just because I don't think Kilda has the correct horses to stop the Danahers, the Hipwoods, the Camerons, the Baileys. Lincoln McCarthy's playing well. They've got so many weapons right now up front. If Lachie Neale comes back, he'll have a week of rest on that body. I think he'll still play really well. This is just such a good Brisbane Lions team. I just have a hard time seeing St. Kilda knocking them off. So I have the Lions in this one.
Mm-hmm. Definitely reasonable there. Now, with the GWS Giants and the Gold Coast Suns, this is a game where, as a Giants fan, I'm a little bit worried about this one because we know Gold Coast's performance late in the season. We know how the Giants like to blow really good opportunities. And this has a Giants choke job all over it. But I have confidence, maybe a little bit too much in this team. I like the Giants. But, man, I'm going to be white-knuckled watching this entire game of football until that final siren sounds.
The only thing that I think GWS is much more healthy. I think there's a lot more structure to them. So I'm not as worried for GWS as I was for Richmond. Like Richmond, I could see some danger signs on the horizon going into that one. I think GWS coming off a big win, I agree with you. There is a tiny chance you could see a letdown because they're like, you beat Melbourne, great job, you're in the finals, and this is the week where you see Gold Coast on, and you kind of that proverbial trap game in American sports, that team you overlook, the team you're not expecting. So do keep an eye on this one. I think Gold Coast is sneaky, but I'm gonna go GWS on this one. I think Coach Cameron has got them playing good footy right now. I think they're just gonna have a little too much, especially if they put Mumford in the ruck. I think he's gonna terrorize those young ruckmen for the goal. I think GWS wins this one, but it will not shock me if Gold Coast stays in this one because they're playing with a ton of confidence right now.
Yeah, they do, and it's that confidence that could be really scary, like to a team like the Giants that kind of pick and choose when they want to show up, so it's going to be an interesting game. That. And now, I think this, at least besides the Port Adelaide Melbourne game, has a chance to be one of the most pivotal games on the fixture, and that is the Western Bulldogs and the Sydney Swans right now. This is taking place at Marvel Stadium. And, man, especially going off of what we saw last round, yes, Western gets the win, but it's a little bit lackluster against North Melbourne team, but they do play well. The Sydney Swans, they get a huge win over a top 8 team, but the West Coast has been kind of struggling, a little bit suspect recently. I am going to tip the Sydney Swans in this one, but this is a really hard one for me to pick because you can easily make an argument for either teams for totally different reasons. If Sydney could avoid a slow start, which kind of dooms them in a lot of these big games, if they're able to get things going, get things fast, and maybe get Buddy Franklin rolling early, then this could be a really hard game for the Western Bulldogs, especially if I think this game is probably going to be taking place, kind of what you mentioned when we were looking at the Western Bulldogs against the North Melbourne Roos game. It's going to come down to the midfield battle, and I think Sydney might actually be able to edge them out in this one.
Oh man, this one, it's the arena it's the stadium that they're playing at is the thing that concerns me as a Swans fan. The Western Bulldogs play Marvel Stadium so well. It really fits their style more than any stadium throughout all of Australia. If it were up to me as a Swans fan, I would have preferred the MCG here because the MCG fits a little bit more of what Sydney wants. They want open space, they want ground. Marvel is a quick deck, which I think really fits the Western Bulldogs. I'm gonna play the reverse psychology on this one. I'm gonna tip the Western Bulldogs. I'm going to be cheering so hard for the Swans in this one. I think the Western Bulldogs have just a tiny bit too much in the midfield. Bontempelli is an absolute animal. As much as I would love it, I don't know if Sydney's got somebody that can neutralize him enough to impact the game. I think Buddy still has a really good game because I think Alex Keith. I don't know if Alex Keith can shut him down. I think this could be one of those, a lot like the Freo game. I think Buddy could kick 5 and Sydney loses and Sydney falls by like 8 because this is going to be a close game. The midfield's going to be a fun battle to watch. I really want to see, does Jamar Ugle-Hagan get his first game as a Western Bulldog in this game with Aaron Naughton going down? This opens up a spot Mara to potentially play, which will be quite an interesting little matchup there. Is you have Bunnicklin and the kid that's being compared to him potentially on the same field at the same time. So that's a little side story. We'll have to see if that comes true. It'll really be interesting to see. Like I said, I'm going to tip the doggies. I think this is under a goal. I think this is game of the round for sure of this round.
That'd be a lot of fun. Wouldn't that be one hell of a clash of storylines right there? Now, our Sunday game, I guess this is going to be Sunday afternoon for you guys over in Australia. This is Richmond and Collingwood, and I would love to tip Collingwood in this one. I don't think we see 3 losses in a row for this Richmond team, especially against the lower teams like they have been. I'll tip Richmond at the MCG, but Collingwood's going to be in this one.
Oh boy, you ready for this?
Please give it to me, Donnie.
I'm tipping the Pies in this one because
I love it.
Basher Hooley unfortunately is hurt. I don't think he's going to play, and another defensive injury is not what this Richmond team needs. Yes, you get Tom Lynch back and he kicks goals, but as we saw last week against a depleted Gold Coast team, this Tigers team defensively, if you attack them through the corridor and you attack their gaps, you can open them up and you can score on them. Collingwood has just enough weapons in the midfield and up front. I think they're going to give the Tigers issues. I'm going to tip the Pies on this one.
I really hope that comes true solely so we can see the kind of reaction that Richmond fans might be able to give us on social media if they were to drop 3 games like that in just really brutal fashion. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I don't have anything against Richmond fans, but they do bring the comedy when it comes to reactions on losses and what they bring on social media. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But we're going to cap this round off with a game between the West Coast Eagles and the North Melbourne Roos. And I swear, Donnie, if this wasn't at Optus, I would be tipping North Melbourne so hard in this one. But it's at that damn stadium, and it's always hard to pick against West Coast no matter their struggles. But I really would not be surprised if the Roos get the win in this one. Really would not be surprised.
If the talk that I'm hearing, because this game is actually going to be Monday, which is going to make my team of the week fun next, because I'm literally going to have to watch this game in the morning and then spend all day trying to get the team together. So,
right.
So just warning you, Ross, the team of the week's going to be a bit later. It's going to be a full day later than it normally is.
Cool with that.
Nah, but it'll be fun. If I hear correctly, it sounds like there's a potential absolute full house for this game out in Optus Stadium. So
That's good.
as much as it would be great to watch the Roos find a way to knock off the Eagles and just to see the insanity that the bottom of the ladder could take on if some of these games go the way they could, I think a full crowd. Liam Ryan will be back, which for some reason Liam Ryan tends to be some kind of that little stabilizer for this West Coast team, which he wasn't in this game against Sydney, which you could almost make an argument they missed him big time in this last game. I'm going to tip the West Coast Eagles, but I'm with you. If the Roos find a way to win this one with the putrid and tepid performance that West Coast put on, it will not surprise me because this Roos team is playing better footy. They seem fearless. They're young. They don't care, and they're just getting after it as much as they can. So it'll be an entertaining game of footy on a Monday morning.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting one. And man, depending on how a few of these games go, might be one of my favorite rounds of the year. Just based off results and seeing what teams might be able to win and what fan bases might be really, really hurt after this round of footy. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. We really do appreciate each and every one of you. Amazing people that tune into the show, especially the ones that listen in on a weekly basis. Truly do appreciate all of you and love all of you and hope that you have another fantastic weekend. I guess maybe with the Monday, the Thursday, it's going to be more than half your week is going to be watching footy is what it seems like, at least in the States. So enjoy the hell out of that. And Donnie, your thoughts of round 17 in one word or phrase?
Anticipation, because if a couple of these tips turn out the way I want them to, the anticipation of the reactions are what I'm anticipating and cannot wait to see. Like I said, I am not tipping against Richmond for anything more than just the fact that I think the reactions could be absolute gold to watch them come in. So anticipation is what I have for this round.
I love that right there. But this is Fourth and Long. This is the American voice of the AFL. And we'll see all of you amazing people after a possibly insane round 17. And if Richmond loses to the Magpies, please stay safe on Twitter.